Hi there. Thank you so much for listening to Grounded in Maine today. My name is Amy Bolduc, and my guest today is Linley Dixon of the Real Organic Project. So, Linley, thank you so much for being here. I'm so we were just talking about this and how I feel like the organic label has been a little bit muddy for at least for me, and I just want to make sure that people are clear about organic and who better to talk to than Real Organic Project.
Thank you for having me on, Amy.
Yay. I'm really excited about this because, I mean, like I said, and like we were saying before, like I've had this sort of argument in my own head. Like, if something says organic, if you're buying at the grocery store, one, it's covered in plastic, which, but then also sometimes, often it's coming from super far away. And I've always thought in my head, like, a lot of the times, isn't it better if it's grown locally? Not to say anything bad about organic, but I feel like if it's grown locally, that it feels better for me. But why don't you tell me what's better?
Well, I'm a local
Or
farmer, so
explain.
that rings true for me as well. And it was really interesting I had to get an off-farm job in order to acquire land, and I got this amazing job where I was actually doing research in the organic food sector, and I would go to the National Organic Standards Board meetings, which happen twice a year, and I just started to learn more and more about organic. And I had this initial reaction, which was like, oh my gosh, there's so much wrong. And I stopped buying organic food in the grocery store. And then I was like, because I thought it was all the same.
Right.
And then I started learning about the origins of organic and the people that started showing up at these meetings. And these were like farmers of really high integrity with these hardcore values that they breathe, they live and breathe organic.
Mm.
And once I met them, it was like, okay, there are a lot. And, at the time, it was like maybe at least half of the food that is in organic, that is being sold under the organic label, is still part of that original movement with really high integrity. And it's probably like 90% of the farmers, at least, that are certified
Mm.
are part of that. But slowly, and it's getting worse and worse, like every industry, if you kind of look into tech and pretty much everything is getting consolidated, right? And the same thing is happening in the organic food sector. And so realizing just that, oh, I don't want to buy this chemical food either. So what are my options? And, as a farmer, we were producing a lot of our own organic food, but there's this reality that we go out to eat, not us personally, but as people, citizens,
Right.
we go out to eat a lot. We go to the grocery store because it's convenient, and farmers market happens in my community only half of the year,
Hmm.
not even half of the year,
Hmm.
and once, one day a week.
Hmm.
So this acknowledgement that even with my commitment of how much I was growing myself, how much I still went to the farmers market to shop and trade with my other farmers, I still was, and then my daughter at school, was eating from the cafeteria. So
Right.
there was just so much food that our family was still consuming that was chemical laden. And so we really, we all have vested interest in figuring out how to protect this label that I think has such a beautiful history.
Right. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. That totally. I mean, if there's a farmer that's growing organic at the farmer's market, I'm like, it's like a beeline, right? But
Yeah.
um, they're just
And many of them are and don't necessarily need the certification. And
right.
so that's just a relationship. And, of course, that's growing it yourself, finding a local farmer that's growing organically. Those are your best options.
Yeah, for sure. So, do you want to tell us the history of organic?
Oh, that would probably be months and months to hear the full history, but I can tell you my role in it, which I thought was really exciting.
Yes, please.
Well, so we sort of took a long time to acquire land. We were renting land. It was really expensive, and we're farming out west where water rights are a really big deal. And so in order to farm, you have to have good water rights that last throughout the whole season. And that land is super expensive because it's getting bought up by people with horses or developments with ponds. And so there's all these social justice issues too around good farmland and can farmers afford it? And so we had farmed in our community on rented land to be close to town, close to our eaters. And we had a CSA where they could just come right onto the farm. So it's this beautiful option. But the landowner kept jacking up the rent price on us. And we actually had switched, we were farming on like 3 or 4 different pieces of property to kind of piece it all together. And we just realized we would have to move so far out of town in order to get affordable
Right.
land. We
Right.
decided not to do it. We were actually going to quit farming after having a 200-member CSA and being in the community for 8 years. And someone found out about it and they were like, we're not going to let you quit. And there's actually a lot of stories like this across the country. So I think it's really great to share them because I think it happens to a lot of farmers and they do quit. But just to say that, like, sometimes if you put a lot of hard work and this concept of social capital comes back to reward you. And there were some people that had some land that they had bought in foreclosure and they wanted to see farmers on it. And
Oh,
so what they ended up doing is dropping the price a little bit, but just giving us the time to be able to apply for an FSA loan, which gives you low interest rates so that you could afford it. And that's a whole process itself too. Like how do you acquire land through the FSA? And that just takes time. And often, you got to make an offer and you got to close within a certain amount of time, and then someone else just gets it.
right.
So we had these landowners that just wanted to see us there. So we moved into the house. We started farming the land. The infrastructure that you put in, it's like you want to make sure that this is not going to be lost to you, but because your rent, your lease goes up or the landowner just decides they want to sell. So
Right.
it was such a core value, I think, we didn't need to own it, but it was like somehow we need to get this investment back. And they just worked with us to make that happen over
That's
over two
amazing.
years until we finally closed on the piece of property. But that whole process meant that I needed to get an off-farm job. Even still, when they lowered the price, I had to go out and find enough money to be able to qualify for the loans. And so I got this really incredible opportunity to start working for the organic movement. And I was going to these National Organic Standards Board meetings, and you can kind of see that there's these business people that want organic to like just mean approved inputs and nothing else. And then there's these defenders of organic, and they're the eaters and the farmers.
Hmm.
And it's often hard to get the farmers to come to the meetings, but there were these nonprofits that represented them. But when the issue of hydroponics and organic came up, all the farmers started coming to the meetings. And that actually ended up being the origin of the Real Organic Project, where they were fighting for integrity, to ensure that soil health was always going to be part of organic. And a lot of what organic farmers do is they grow their own fertility on the farm and then through a cover crop, and then they till that under. And then that's a slow release, really
Hmm.
sustainable form of fertility in the soil over time.
Right.
And so they were defending this concept of, how do we keep the soil healthy? And just kind of astonished that there was a mismatch between what the organic movement always has been, what's actually written in the organic law to foster soil fertility, and then the end result of the vote, which was split. Um, and because the vote was split, you actually needed 2/3 to get something to be passed. It just kind of never got passed that hydroponics would be allowed. And there was this weird top-down statement from the NOP, the National Organic Program, and they said hydroponics is is allowed and it always has been allowed. And it was kind of this Orwellian moment when the organic movement realized they had lost organic. And so they all got together and they started the Real Organic Project as an add-on label to organic to differentiate all of these extra soil health practices that they were doing. And out of that, I got to visit what we called the pilot project, 60 organic farms around the country. And I was part of this National Organic Standards Board that was for real organic standards. So these are add-on standards. And let's see, jump 8 years later, we are 1,000 farms, which is that directory that you found.
Yep.
And these are all farms that are meeting these additional standards of soil health is the main one, but also it's a whole farm standard. So you can't, have a portion of your farm growing chemically and then a portion organically because that just sets up a situation where fraud is more likely. So it's a whole farm standard. There's some worker welfare requirements, and then there's additional pasturing of livestock. So these are kind of the add-on standards that the organic movement had been fighting for to happen with the USDA organic label, and they just weren't winning over years and years and years. And so they decided that they needed to kind of do it themselves, and that's where the Real Organic Project came in. So it's an add-on label to organic as a way to differentiate in the grocery stores. And actually, a lot of them are at the farmers market, and they don't really need the label to market. They're just
Right.
doing it because they support the movement.
Right.
So it's this kind of pesky group of farmers that have all come together.
Right. I mean, I know and I don't know if this is, it's probably separate from, but I know that at a lot of the farmers markets in, well, my farmers market in Maine, a lot of the farmers would put these stickers or something that would say "Get Real, Get Maine," or that was like it was like a
Yeah.
slogan. Is that similar too, or it's not the same because it's not the same logo, but
Yeah. So this is the logo right here behind me. A blue circle with the green leaf says Real Organic Project. And I mean, it's similar in that we were trying so hard to figure out what to call ourselves, and we are like, well, should we be the Regenerative Organic Project, or should we be? I think we were even excited about this concept of like deep root or biologique, which is what they call it in Europe. And then finally, someone was like,
why not?
I'm just organic. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
Real Organic Project became, but no, you can't use the logo as a farm unless you're certified with us. So
right.
that's the difference.
Which I noticed you can totally do it for free, right? It's like
Yeah.
a 20-minute application process.
Yeah, that was really my insistence because as a young kind of startup farmer, I just knew how
One more
difficult it was.
thing.
And I didn't
Yeah.
want to
One
put
more
that
hurdle.
burden
Yep.
on farmers. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are a lot of farmers that use organic processes, but I think that the like we were just saying, like the application process or the process of being certified is expensive or just
totally.
a lot of work. So,
Yeah,
I think maybe you were saying it before we started recording, but it's a relationship thing. Like, so talk with your farmers and,
absolutely.
understand
Yeah,
their
no, I think I
practice.
said it during the recording. A lot of farmers, especially in my community here, um, if you came from Maine, MAFCA's there and VOF, Vermont Organic Farmers, and NOFA New York, like these are longtime organic organizations that actually have built out this huge organic movement in the region. But where I am, there's no organization like that. So it's really rare to get certified organic if you're a local farmer.
Mm.
And I'm actually kind of jealous of those areas because they have so much community, around these organizations. But so it's more rare to get certified organic. We do have a year-round greenhouse for tomato growing, and as soon as we got those too many tomatoes to sell at the farmer's market, we needed this certification. And so a lot of times a farmer won't get it, even though they're using organic practices, until they have established enough that they're ready to start working with grocery stores. And that was true for us.
Got it. Got it. I mean, do you have, gosh, tomato season. I miss tomato season. I mean, I love going to the farmer's market in tomato season because then when they get so many, they'll like discount them and you're like, I'm gonna can these guys. So, uh,
That's the way to do it is figure out when things are in season and then just go crazy.
yeah,
Because the farmers are selling it at a reduced price. You were talking about how it's hard financially to buy organic. I mean, it does take a lot of time, and freezer space and canning and things like that. So, um, but you can get really affordable like the best food there is if you buy it in season locally and then figure out how to preserve it.
right. Yes, for sure. Well, I mean, that's a fascinating story. I did not know that. But I think I just hear a lot of rumblings and I don't get a lot, a lot of clarity. So I'm grateful for that. And so can we talk about, so you just closed on your farm?
No, so that was 8 years ago.
That's awesome.
Yep, that was 8 years ago.
That's so cool that there are people out there that are just like, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to save it for someone who really will do it justice.
And
Um,
I think it's like proof that if you put a lot of hard work in your community, I mean, it doesn't always come true, but like people notice and put it out there when you're struggling
yeah,
because maybe someone can help, you
yeah,
know?
for sure. I just think that that's it says a lot about people who believe in the movement too. You know, the people that bought that off of on foreclosure and were just like, you you take it. Know, lower the price. We just want to make sure that it's being used correctly, and that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I'm just starting the process of trying to find and buy a farm, and land is ridiculous. It is ridiculous, costly, like so costly. And it's really overwhelming and intimidating for a new person to get into. But,
Yeah.
but
You know, when you are traveling and inspecting all these farms and kind of building relationships with them, you hear some incredible stories. And there was this one young farmer in Iowa who was able to get her community to buy shares of the land. And then, because she was a CSA farmer for a long time, and then there was this, opportunity to kind of purchase the farm way out of their price range. So she got like 20 people to all invest in the land in terms of shares. And she's been slowly buying them the shares back.
oh, that's incredible.
So over time, and that like blew my mind that you could like come up with something like that. And she really did it in a pretty short time frame. And so there's all these alternative ways of doing it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that story. I mean, we'll see.
I think if people see like passion, dedication, hard work,
Yeah,
good things can come from that.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I literally just, so this is May 8th. Just last night, I did a podcast episode with a friend of mine, about my farm journey goal thing. Gosh. But she also has a podcast, and her podcast is about agritourism. And so she's inspired me like crazy. And so I was like, all these things I'm going to do with this farm once I have it. And she, in her interviews, she's interviewed so many super cool people and people with, about funding and, financing and stuff like that. So, um, it was just really, it was really cool. And just, I want your story.
Believe me, there were a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, as they
Yeah.
say,
Oh, I'm
that went along
sure.
with
I
it.
believe that. Oh my
It
goodness.
sounds very, inspirational at this point, but it was a long, hard journey.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure. So let's talk about, so how to find good food was one of the things that that I was told you would want to talk about.
Sure, yeah. Um, well, I think we touched on a little bit in that I feel like growing it yourself is always a great way to get started and
Absolutely.
cheap, like
Yeah.
affordable. Although people say that, and then I have to say I used to like spend a lot of money and have a lot of failures before I got good at this. So, and someone told me there was really good advice before farming. Like, if you're not okay with failure, then don't get into this line of work because you're gonna like you keep failing. It's hopefully just a different mistake every time,
Right.
but even that's not true, you know.
Well, getting the
Um,
soil just so is not, it's
yeah.
not like a magic wand.
No, and that's another part of like land access. It's like you work so hard to get soil fertility over time where you need it to be, and so you want kind of long-term access to that land. But yeah, I think that worm composting is a really good way to get started at home. And they make these really cheap, affordable, and then you're just putting all your organic matter. And I was that kid who knocked on my neighbor's doors and collected all of their organic matter. And worms have a way of just like keeping it away. You can do it like in a fridge, like a freezer, like put an old fridge down. Don't plug it in, but that's your insulated but warm box. And right, there's always broken fridges. What a sustainable way. I mean, I love this because you were talking about how your yard and your neighbors and what are they going to think? And you
Yeah.
like your yard
Right.
is
Oh my
lined with all
God.
these
That
like
would
old
just,
freezers.
their heads would just explode, I think.
But that insulates
Now
the
she's
worm.
done it.
And it's like just this really affordable way to get like the most incredible black gold fertility for your soil. So, and that you gotta like, I mean, I've been into all the restaurants and the schools. Oh my gosh, if you could work with a school, you just got one stop and then you can bring all that, get the schools to separate their slop and their trash, and then you have an incredible source of fertility. So there's lots of ways to do it more affordably. Oh, but to finish the question, yeah. So growing it first, going to your farmer's market. Like I was saying, in my community, there's only like half the year, less than that, 5 months out of the year that you can go to the farmer's market. So that's where you really hope that those farmers can get grocery store shelf space. And that's what the Real Organic label is all about. So you can find really authentic
Right.
uh, food. And really, we were getting pushed off the shelves. So with this consolidation, everybody's trying to compete with Walmart, which is the biggest grocery store sales. I was kind of floored when I heard that. I assumed that, they sold other things, but really it's grocery. Um, and I just didn't know how big they were in that industry. And so, there's like an Albertsons Kroger merger to compete with Walmart. And I think they've been trying to prevent that from happening because there really is there are even these programs that say that, oh, you didn't sell those carrots last week, so don't buy them again. And the local farmer just didn't have them available that week, right? So they're called spin. And it used to be a career position at one of these co-ops or independent grocery stores, or like out here we have natural co-ops, what's it called? Natural grocers. That's like a chain of 300. And it used to be that you could like work with the manager of the produce department and sell stuff there.
Right.
And now it's like a very top-down decision, and they just say, no, you can't work with any local farmers anymore. We're going to work with people that can provide year-round the same product. And so and they're competing with Walmart or Albertsons or whoever. So the world is changing around us, and the idea behind this label is that there will be a value over time. It's not going to happen overnight, but this is a young movement kind of just getting started, that people will start asking and demanding. I see that you have organic blueberries, but can you also ensure that there's some real organic project blueberries during the season? And that somehow the system will allow us to have seasonal product on the shelves. And
Mhm.
right now, that's really what we're losing because they want to work with a single vendor and get a deal for the year, at a low price. But it's just to see if we can create that marketplace um, pressure to be able to play.
Right. Well, and a big part of that, I'm assuming, is going to be the consumers. Like if the consumers are demanding it,
Yeah, yeah,
then they have to provide or they're going to lose the business.
yeah.
And that's where we come in, you guys.
That's right. And we're kind of at that next stage where we've got 1,000 farms certified across the country. And so now we actually have products. So if the consumer went in and said, where's your Real Organic Project blueberries? I know it's in season right now. Um, then they could say, well, and if the manager is like, what's that? You know what I mean? Didn't know. You could hand them a list, like, here are all the farms that are producing blueberries in my region. And that's that directory on our website that you were playing with. So we're getting to that point where um, we're actually even working with the Houston Texans right now because the players, they're like, this is food that fuels us. So they were starting to ask for more, and to have that directory to be able to piece together, okay, how do we deliver quantity in this region? And hopefully that takes off and we start working with other teams.
Mhm.
We really are creating some marketplace value for our farmers that are really, so many of them are struggling right now.
Oh,
That was the
absolutely.
story that I heard just over and over again across the board. And these are long time organic farmers that started the movement. They have a couple hundred acres
Mhm.
of production, of vegetable production, which is a lot,
That's a lot.
right? And they've had established markets, and those are being taken away. So that's what was shocking to me, that these kind of long time established farmers with
Relationships. Yeah.
markets were losing.
Yep. It's so messed up.
Well, you're lucky, so you
Would
have Lady
rather have
Moon.
it travel across the country than use something that's right here.
Right, right.
Wild.
Lady Moon is a real organic farm that is using the label, and their production is part-time in Pennsylvania and part-time in Florida. So they actually can provide year round. So they're actually in the grocery stores and getting that label out there so that people are starting to see it and say, what is this about? And then the next step, I feel like, is saying, well, can we get some local farmers in here too?
Yeah. This is called Lady Moon.
Yeah, Lady Moon Farm is, they're just like awesome soil farmers
Right.
because they are able to, when they move their production to Pennsylvania, they cover crop all summer long in Florida. And then the winter production's down in Florida and they're able to cover crop. So, it extends their
Smart.
season to be able to move production down there and they can get a really good high biomass cover crop that they're then able to incorporate into the soil for fertility. So it's just an example of incredible soil stewardship. I've seen them purchase additional plots to grow their business. And they're like, well, we can't be on here, for a number of years because we're growing the soil fertility with cover crops before we can get started.
Right. So
That's
you
pretty
gotta
impressive.
rotate. Yeah. Wow. And so I just want to, so for the folks that are listening, you can go to your website, realorganicproject.com, is it? Or .org?
Yep, exactly. realorganicproduct.org, which is
Okay.
organic. You can
Right.
remember.
Oh, org for organic. And so the directory is there, you guys. You can literally put in your city or town and state, and it will show you what's available that is real certified, real organic. Um,
It's good stuff. And if you find that there's some organic farmers in your region that aren't part of it, we have a
encourage-
really great podcast, a newsletter. Like there's a lot of ways to kind of bring people into the movement. Tell them about it. Tell them to start listening to the podcast. Farmers love podcasts because we're out there busy with our hands and we just put earplugs in to pass the time and they'll learn about the movement and listening to it, reading our letters, like you're just going to want to be part of it. So help us grow the movement too, so that that map can fill out even more.
right? And yeah, I mean, if you know, and if you guys know an organic farmer, let them know, whether they're certified or not. You can get certified for free if they just go to this website. There's a tab for farmers, there's a tab for eaters, which I love. That reminds me of the Sporkful podcast. That we're not for foodies, we're for eaters. And then there's the directory. Yeah, how to find.
Yeah.
And so you can find where the certified organic farms are and find the best food.
Amy, there's a story behind why it says for eaters instead of for
Oh,
consumers. You want
yay.
to know?
Yes, please.
So a consumer means to destruct, to destroy. And it was actually an intentional switch at some point to go from, businesses calling their customers to consumers, because if you're a business and
Hmm.
whoever buys your stuff destroys it, they'll want to buy more. They'll need to buy more.
Oh, wow.
So consumer is kind of a word that really, I know you wanted to talk about what does sustainability mean. It's kind of a word that's just like, that's not a sustainable situation. Whereas customer, it's like, we want to take care of you.
Mhm.
So I know people are used to just saying that, the word for consumers, right? But there's a real effort to just say, well, I'm an eater, and of course I have to end up destroying what I eat, but that's just because it's food. If I buy a desk, I want to be a customer because I want that desk to last my whole life. I don't want to consume it and destroy it.
I like
But
that
I thought that was
though.
really interesting to hear the history of that word and how it makes you kind of rethink
Yeah.
your relationship with the businesses.
Yes. And I will say it till I die. Like the relationship part is so, so important.
Yeah.
Really like get to know your farmers, who is growing your food. It matters. It really does. It matters to them and it should matter to you because one, you can get great deals on things if you make friends with them, but also you're taking care of them and they're taking care of you. It's a win-win for everyone.
Have you seen that bumper sticker that organic farmers make great neighbors?
Oh, I have not.
Well, if you think about what it means, it's like, well, we're not spraying, so you're not having to like ingest all those fumes and everything. So I feel like even if you're not a customer of organic food, just knowing and having them exist in the world is still a benefit to you
Right.
because they're not poisoning the world around you.
Yeah.
So everybody should love organic, even if you feel like you're in a situation where you can't afford it or, your life is too crazy and you're just eating in the cafeteria or whatever.
Right.
It's still something that everybody benefits from.
Yeah. Well, so Lindley, can you just like what the definition of organic is it technically just not grown with chemicals, pesticides, all that stuff?
So yeah, you just open a
Is
big
that a
can of
trick
worms,
question?
but it's whose organic is it, right?
Right,
I
right. I'm
think
like,
that
why
the
is it important to
USDA,
be organic?
yeah, so the USDA owns that word now. That was like the bargain that the organic movement made with the government. They actually said, please regulate us because people are using this word and they're using what we now call prohibited substances. They're using they're just cheating, right? So the movement went to the USDA and said, please regulate this word. Now, it was kind of this Faustian bargain or some sort of like, okay, now we're like sitting at the table with the devil because the USDA never really believed in organic. And they never really wanted to do that. But it was legislation that, ended up getting passed. Senator Leahy from Vermont was a huge part of that legislation and that big win. And it's been this like really uncomfortable relationship all along because there is now an organic program and they just want to see it grow, right? So they very much have believed that organic is just about because it's really the only thing that's easy to regulate too is did you use this substance or didn't you? You know what I mean? It's farming with the use of approved substances. But the movement has always said, we wrote this beautiful Organic Productions Act, and it has all this language about biodiversity and, yeah, like beneficials and, bringing all kinds of systems into play. And it's not about the end product and making sure that end product is clean. So there have been some like really serious issues have come to the table, like, can you herbicide a field, put down plastic and then grow things in a pot. And then because the final product is now free of chemicals,
Hmm.
can that be called organic?
Right.
And the organic movement's like, no, you just sprayed herbicide to get there, to get to that point. And so it's very much about the system of how did you get there? And they even look at like sustainable packaging and all kinds of things like that. And the USDA has always been like, we can't regulate
That's too much.
soil health and these complicated
Right.
things. So it very much has been a mismatch, but I really just want to kind of give a big shout out to how incredible that movement side of organic is. And yes, they often lose, but there's so much passion and heart that it's a really kind of incredible story that I want to get out there that I didn't realize how many people are there fighting for integrity in the organic program
Mm.
and how they often lose. And then they come back and fight again because they know if they give up that word, then just anybody can say that they're
Right.
organic. So there's something pretty precious about that law that they got passed.
Mm. Wow. That's amazing. I mean, I love that people are so passionate about it. I feel kind of dumb that I haven't been, but um it's
Well, I wasn't until I learned. It's like if it's not part of your world, how would you know? You just see a lot of corporate, like, I don't know what this is, and it's got the label and it's from Peru. You know what I mean? I don't know.
right. I know, like
Yeah.
as a jam business, I had a hard time finding good fruit. I was using local fruit, but in the off season or whatever, if I ran out, like I could get some, bulk from a distributor or whatever. But when I saw the packaging, it was like from Serbia. I'm like, I I don't even know how to feel about that. Like I just don't
Yeah.
there's nothing special about that unless Serbia is famous for their strawberries. I don't but
And it might be this incredible cooperative that came together of like thousands of growers and small growers, trying to figure out how to find a market to get it into the States. That does exist.
Mhm.
But then there needs to be some transparency so that you can figure that out. And oftentimes
Yeah,
that's what's missing. It's like there's no way you're ever going to tell where that product came from.
right, right. Yeah, that. I I mean, I just well, I didn't justify it, but like in my solution to that was to pick my own. Like at least then,
Yeah.
I know where it came from.
Yeah.
My own quality control. But well, that's really interesting. And I'm glad that it's not as cut and dry as
Like everything.
yeah. but
There's
like
nuance.
the fact that it was unclear for me is not because I wasn't understanding. It was because it was very unclear in general.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think there's a great line that I think it was my co-director that I first heard it from. He said, if you're not confused, you're not paying attention. Like the marketplace is very confusing intentionally because they're really good at mimicking that local label. Like every package has like a cow on a pasture or a chicken, and then
If
that's
it's
not
all
what
the
the
same, I
real
might as
farm
well
looks
just make
like.
some money.
Yeah. Yeah. They're really good at being us, at
Mhm.
marketing, you
Yeah.
know,
I just saw
better at being us than we are at being us. You know what I mean? They're good, man. They've got
they
a
got us
lot of
figured
big time
out.
money behind
Sure.
confusing us.
Yeah, I just saw a really good Instagram reel a week or so ago. There's this guy who was talking about carrots. Like, instead of calling these organic carrots, why don't we call them carrots? And then the
Yeah,
ones that are grown with the pesticides and stuff, we can call them chemical carrots and then see who buys
totally.
them. But I was like, ooh, that's such a good burn. And that really gets attention, right? I mean,
I would love to live in a world where like the ingredients package also had to say this is what was sprayed. You know what I mean? Just the transparency there.
yep,
And that was what was regulated, not the people that don't spray anything.
right.
It's like, what do you have to regulate us for?
If you're not doing something bad, why are you not
Yeah.
paying?
Yeah.
But so, all right. So we talked about how to find good food and how to grow good food. And you were saying, like, uh, worm bins or worm castings and you talked about cover crops and stuff like that. So, is there anything else that you would suggest around that? I mean, getting
For growing
soil head.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so tempting to like put things in a container because then you don't have to weed or bend over. And I guess I would say try not to do that. And there's this beautiful woman, her name's Ruth Stout. She's no longer with us, but she lived into her 90s gardening. And I think she used to even garden naked. Like her husband would talk about how he always knew when she was like coming back into the house because like the farm stopped or the cars driving by like stopped slowing down in front of there. But she was this wild free spirit. And there's still this beautiful video of her on YouTube if you can find it, Ruth Stout. And she gardened by just using a ton of mulch. And so she would just like a weed would come up. She would always have like bales of hay and she would just like throw a flake of hay over it. She wouldn't weed it. And over time, it just built this beautiful soil. So you actually have to have some patience, right? It'll probably take 3 years to get all that. It'll take 3 years for your worms to produce compost too, but it's so worth it. And then you've just got this magical soil that's kind of interacting, and over time, like the sand particles and the basement stone layers, all of that you got the mycorrhizae in there. If you put something in a container, it's going to get too hot, and then the water is going to be different. And so you put something with a lot of mulch in the soil and it's just going to thrive. And so I guess I would just say like avoid the temptation to like buy a box or you know what I mean? Like and I know people sometimes just have porches and that's all you got. Great, go for it. But there's something really beautiful if you can work in the soil. So I guess that would be my other
Oh, for
tip
sure.
is that deep mulching.
hmm I love that. It sounds so nice. I want that.
It is an incredible feeling when you finally have transformed soil over years and you're working in it and it's just like gorgeous. There's nothing like it. It's so worth living.
Right? I mean that like idyllic um visual when you walk through and like everything is green and it's all so lush and that it's not it doesn't happen instantly.
Yeah, and you get such a sense of place. You start to learn the birds and the seasons and the twirly things that are falling out of the sky, from the trees, whatever. You like really you see the place so well. And farming or gardening, in Virginia is so different than in Southwest Colorado where I am. And I think it's a really beautiful way to like intimately connect to place.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's so deep. I love it. Really
So
is.
go do it.
Oh, do it. Okay. And so I mean I think That's actually super helpful. I just love the distinction of organic, like just the because like I said so many times, it's just been so unclear, and just to know that there are people that really really care. Um, and so Real Organic Project, you guys, definitely check it out. Look to see what's available by you, and get to work in your own dirt. But Lindley, what does the word sustainability mean to you?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, academically, there's a definition of financial sustainability, so you can come back to farm the next year. Social sustainability, which, right, I got my people that help me make this farm work.
Yep.
And then environmental sustainability, right? That's academically, but I feel like you're always just kind of lying if you say you're sustainable because pretty much everything we do has such a heavy footprint on this world. And so it's kind of just this concept, right? And you can claim it, but it's never really true, environmentally speaking. Even on our farm, like we put so much emphasis in soil health, and I know we've sequestered carbon in our soils, but in order to be financially sustainable, we have this greenhouse and we heat that greenhouse with fossil fuels. And so I'm not a sustainable business. I have to drive to farmers market, all of those things. So I think it's about acknowledging where you can continuously improve
Yeah.
and acknowledging where there are holes, being very transparent about what you're doing, where you're succeeding, and where you can get better. So that's to me, it's about honesty, I feel like.
Love that.
We I know, I've never heard that before. And you said you were interested in the answer to this question, so I really thought about it. And that is what I came up with. Because, I go to these conferences, these sustainability conferences, and these businesses that are the worst, you know, they send these people and they're the sustainability professionals and they just lie about what they're doing. And yeah, they are working on, making their packaging have a little less plastic. And meanwhile, like the plastic use in the production is just insane. So it's like, but they're not talking about that. They're not being honest to us about how they're really producing. And it's this glossy, like, aren't we amazing? And sustainability is presented to the world. So for me, it's about that transparency, about really holding these values to and living by them and being honest about where we fail and where we can try to improve.
Oh, I really like that. I mean, I don't know that anyone, or probably no one, should say I'm a perfect sustainable person. Um, we're all imperfect, but being upfront and honest and just doing our best, I think it's the best we can do is being our best.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
always trying to see where we can improve and make things better. Um, and I mean, I've had guests in the past, a couple of them, when I ask them that question, they're like, "Ooh, sustainability is not sustainable is not good." Like, I don't want this to be
It's been
sustainable,
co-opted.
right? I do not want things to stay the way that they are. Like, sustaining is
Uh-huh.
good. So, it's always interesting to hear where people are. And I love your answer. I love everyone's answer, but it's different, and it's so true. It's so true. I mean, transparency is like everything. Like, don't say you're something you're not just to get money or to, get business or something. Like, that's it's kind of icky. Well, no, it's very icky, but do the
It's
best
definitely
you
become a
can, and
buzzword,
don't
right?
don't make stuff up.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to
Yeah.
be so hard. But
It
so
happens to all of our movements. Like the sustainability movement got co-opted, the organic movement got co-opted, the regenerative movement is definitely getting co-opted right now, which is hard for people to admit when it first starts happening because
right,
it's your baby, it's your movement, but you
right.
gotta you gotta call it out when you see it.
I know with regenerative, it's like it's becoming bigger and bigger and talked about more and more, but who's it? Um, is it just like, is it like a buzzword now?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Bayer's regenerative, Pepsi is regenerative. And I think
Are
it's
you
just
serious?
like an
They're really
organic.
saying that?
They all claim it. And it's just like
Man,
organic, where it's like, that's not what we meant. You know what I mean? And I think that's the best you can do is just call it out when you see it.
Yep.
and defend, things that you hold dear.
Right. Oh man, that's so good. And so how can people find you and learn more and, tell their farmer friends or their gardener friends and, get more people or certified organic or learn more or just learn more or find out where they can find a good farm?
Yeah. Well, for sure, go to our website and start listening to our podcast. Subscribe to our podcast. It's really good. You'll learn so much. And we have a newsletter, weekly newsletter that you can subscribe to that comes out every Sunday. And just start talking to people about these issues, you know?
Okay. I'm going to put the website in the show notes, you guys, but realorganicproject.org, like organic.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. My goodness. Lindsay Dixon, thank you so much for hanging out and thank you for sharing all of this information. I feel a lot better about that because, like I said, I mean, I was very unclear and not that I don't buy organic, but I was like, is this really better? So,
Yeah,
but it
it
matters.
is. It's really better, but there's problems.
Awesome. Good to know. All right. Thank you again. And thanks you guys for listening.